Hey everybody, Peter with ConversantLife.com, and I've got the privilege today of sitting down with Dr. Craig Hazen, who's the professor of comparative religions at Biola University and is the author of his new book, Five Sacred Crossings, a novel approach to reasonable faith. And Craig, let's talk about the word novel for an instance. I've certainly read a number of Christian books, and a handful have been Christian apologetics books, but none of them have actually been novels. Why did you choose the novel format to write a Christian apologetics book?
I've been teaching apologetics and comparative religions and a little bit of philosophy for a number of years on college campuses and in churches. And some of my students finally said, you know what, we need to communicate this in new ways. And I totally agreed with them. So I encouraged them back. Look, if you have talents in novel writing, in screenplays, in stage plays, you name it, we need to communicate some of these great ideas in compelling ways that draw people in, not just through the sheer force of the philosophical arguments, but through stories that incorporate these arguments. And that's what I attempted to do in Five Sacred Crossings. They came back to me and said, you know, why don't you try it? And really, that was a daunting task. And for a guy who tries to write books that are published by academic presses and things, to write a novel was something completely out of my experience. But with some encouragement from Bruce and Stan and some others, I gave it a shot, and I think I pulled it off. And I attempted to weave together key apologetic elements, key philosophical ideas that really highlight the truth of Christianity in a compelling narrative form. I hope it works.
So, Five Sacred Crossings, a novel approach. Take me through what the book is actually about.
Well, that's tough. It really centers on a character named Dr. Michael Jernigan. And he's a professor at a Christian college of all things. Now, believe me, he's not modeled after me, you know. In fact, he's a pastiche of all kinds of characters I've met in my life. But he's a chain-smoking man who walks around with a post-traumatic stress disorder. And it turns out he's really one of the most spiritual guys on the campus, but he really doesn't fit in very well. Really doesn't fit in very well because of some of his habits and his rather inflated interest in Eastern religions. But it turns out he's totally in love with Jesus, and Christ has affected him deeply over the years. And the story really takes on two modes. The first part of the story is talking about Michael Jernigan substituting at a secular college for a colleague of his. He takes on a world religions course for about 5 or 7 weeks, and walks a group of students through what he calls the Five Sacred Crossings. Now, there's a backstory to that. In the Five Sacred Crossings, these are some teachings that he picked up when he was in the Vietnam War. He was shuttled off by the CIA to some mountain region and learned about this sacred text of these Cambodian mountain people called the Five Sacred Crossings. And he uses these ideas to communicate to these students some of the essential issues in Christianity. You know, that you ought not to believe something that can't be known to be true. That you ought to be embracing a religion that has grace right at the center. That you ought to be believing things that paint a picture of the world that matches the way the world really is, and so on. And so there's another backstory with a little bit of terrorist intrigue that I won't tell you about right now. But I hope you do pick it up and give it a go, because I was a bit nervous handing it out to my friends, but so far so good. They've really liked it.
Well, it certainly is an amazing and compelling book, and if you want to download an actual free chapter sample, you can do that on ConversantLife.com right now.